Hey guys, we're going to be discussing a little bit of a controversial topic today. So, today's topic is controversial books on BookTok. There's a lot of very controversial books that are on BookTok, and I wanted to talk about some of them today, at least the ones that I have personally read. This is coming from someone who's not an expert. My average ranking on Goodreads is like a 4-star, so take this with a grain of salt, but we're just going to be talking about some of the more controversial ones. And as you can see from my bookshelf, there's some BookTok books on there. Maybe you recognize them, maybe you recognize some of these. Let's talk about BookTok. We're talking about some of the more controversial books by some of the more controversial authors. We're gonna start, I have a stack of books right next to me, so we're gonna start at the top. Light Lark by Alex Esther, the first book in the Light Lark saga. This book is very controversial because the writing is bad. It's bad, to say the least, and the main character is very pick-me.
So pick me. Choose me. Love me.
She's very interesting of a main character, certainly. And Alex Esther herself isn't very controversial. You have to give her credit where credit is due because look at that. That is gorgeous. So I read this book, I think I finished it last year. I want to say it was last year. This book took me a long time to read. I DNF'd it and DNF'd it over and over. And it's because the writing is bad. It feels like a 12-year-old on Wattpad could have written better than this. If you've never seen any of Alex Esther's TikToks, it is about an island that appears every 100 years. No, it doesn't appear. It's always there, right? I don't know, but it's the centennial. They have the centennial every 100 years, which is where all the rulers from all the different kingdoms come together, and basically it's like Hunger Games for rulers. And if you win, your curse gets broken. That's a very good thing because these curses are very bad. So our main character in this book is Isla Crown. Isla, she is the ruler of Wildling, which is like woods. It's this reddy color, red, green. I don't really know what to say about it. But their curse is that anyone that like falls in love with a wildling dies, and they also have to eat hearts. But the plot twist, Isla doesn't have powers. She's a ruler with no powers. How interesting is that? So this is a, what's it called? This is a love triangle story. Yeah, it's a love triangle. Personally, I love Oro. Very unpopular choice. A lot of people prefer Grimm. I prefer Oro, which is really funny because normally, no, that's not true. I do usually like the like funny, witty, more colorful character than the dark, grim, and morally gray one. I'm not a big fan of dark, grim, and morally gray unless it's in my women, and Isla is not that. There's literally a scene in this book where she's singing and she falls off a balcony, but her singing was so beautiful that King Oro, the king of all of the islands, comes to save her. Ah! Cringe. This book, cringe. I also read the second one though. Nightbane. Yeah. But look at this cover. Look at this cover. It's Grimm and Isla, and it's a scene from the book. And I will say, I liked this one better than Lightlark, and I'm actually excited for the third one, Skyshade. But it's still not the best book in the world. Aster. I feel like I've been saying her name wrong.
Aster.
That book series is a little controversial because it sucks. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I have the signed edition. Of Powerless. I was very excited to get this book. Very excited to read it. Cute, right? She wrote this book on TikTok. This is her debut novel, and it did amazing, and it's a really good book. But to me, there was just something a little off about it. There was just something that I didn't really like. Maybe it's because Lauren Roberts herself isn't this amazing saint of a person. I mean, I'm not saying she's a bad person for this. I'm not saying she's a bad person at all. It's just she supports AI and AI drawings. She has posted and reposted multiple different AI artworks, and she even has them in her highlight on Instagram. This sounds like such a nitpicky thing, but it's really not. AI is taking over art in many different ways. Digital art, it's taking over actual, like, paintings, drawings, digital art. It's taking over music. And it's taking over books, because there are actually rumors that Lauren Roberts used AI to edit this book, because apparently there were some grammatical errors. I'm not I'm not a genius, okay? I didn't catch any errors in the book. Maybe I did and I forgot. Maybe there is errors and I didn't see them. But I feel like she might have. I'm not saying she did. This is all alleged. This is alleged. I'm not trying to paint Lauren Roberts out to be an awful person. I don't think she is. I'm just saying the book feels a little weird when you read it, and maybe it's because of AI. And I think it's a little icky for an author, someone who makes art, to be supporting something and people who steal art, because AI artists do steal art. AI artists are not good people unless they're making the art themselves as a concept and feeding it into their own AI to make AI art. And even then, it's not ethical, but most AI artists steal actual pieces of artwork that people have spent hours making, and they feed it into their machines to get the AI art that Lauren Roberts is reposting and saying it's amazing. I feel like it takes no effort to steal someone's art off of social media and then to feed it into an AI machine. But that's just me personally. I think it's gross. I think it's icky. I don't support AI. I think it should be banned and regulated. Very, very disappointed. Sarah J. Maas. I heard this was her best book series, and I rated this book 2 stars. But we're not talking about Throne of Glass and all of its white characters. We're talking about ACOTAR. This is what we're talking about today. I actually display them on my bookshelf like this. That's why they're in backwards and why it looks right to you guys, because it's mirrored and flipped. Sarah J. Maas is not a good person, if you didn't know, if you weren't aware. A lot of people have been saying that Sarah J. Maas is basically the Colleen Hoover of fantasy, and I think that that's hilarious, except I actually like Sarah J. Maas's writing, at least in this series. I did like this series. I did not like the first Throne of Glass book, but I already have the second one, so I feel like I have to read it. Sarah J. Maas is a very, very controversial author, one of the most controversial because she's one of the most popular. And when I first started reading BookTok books, I got this series for Christmas from my uncle. So it was in December of 2022, and I read it in December of 2022. And I liked them at first. Not the last one, though. I absolutely hate Nesta's book. I think it's awful, and I don't like Nesta. I'm not a Nesta girly. Let's talk about the author herself before we get into the books. Sarah. What can we say about Sarah J. Maas? Is it her lack of diversity in her books? Is it the predominantly white characters that she has? Is it the fact that she's a Zionist? What's so bad about Sarah J. Maas? All of the above. All of the above. Throne of Glass, the first one at least, because I read it, but I heard people say that, like, there's pretty much only white characters throughout the whole series. There's no black characters. Like, I don't remember a single person of color being mentioned in the series ever in the first one. I don't remember that. I don't recall anyone being Asian or Mexican, Hispanic. I don't recall any ethnicities, any other races, just white. I think it's really weird when authors write a majority white cast. I mean, I guess if you're older and you went to school with mostly white people and you're still friends with them, I guess that would make sense. So in ACOTAR, Rhys, Cassian, and Azriel are actually... they're something. They're not white. They're not described as white, but their race of Illyrians are all described as, like, very poorly for being pretty much the only colored race in this series. I mean, yeah, there's, I don't even know how you say it, the feathered winged people from Summer. Um, Tarquin, he's black. Helion is black, I think. And then people whitewash the characters all the time because it's not like described enough. Sarah. Mm-mm. No. It's just the way that she describes the only people of color in the series as like hooligans and just describes their whole race and looks down on them. Everyone, I mean, it makes sense that other people would look down on the Illyrians, but the fact that within the own inner circle people look down on the Illyrians, very it's very weird. Also, the way that they talk about women is also very weird because Reese knows that there are dreamers in the Court of Nightmares, and yet he just keeps torturing the Court of Nightmares and isn't going to look for dreamers. He can read people's minds. He can just break into people's minds and they won't even know. So he can go find dreamers and bring them to Valaris, but he just chooses not to. This is just a little side piece. Why is Moore still like drowning in her trauma? You know, like I understand that they all went through traumatic childhoods and that it would still affect them in some way, but it's been 500 years and Moore isn't capable of moving on. And she still acts like a deer in headlights in front of her father, but she also refuses to kill him, even though Reese has given her explicit permission that she or any member of the inner circle can go and kill her family whenever she chooses. I just in 500 years, you never decided that that's what you wanted to do, even though your dad is like constantly hurting plans. Also, why did Reese give Kier so much power? You know, like I feel like it just caused more inconveniences, and I feel like it just didn't make a lot of sense. I'm a lesbian, so whenever I read a book and there's any sort of like women loving women rep, I'm all for it. But when I read the scene where Moore came out to Feyre in Akawar, I was extremely disappointed because Moore came out saying that she liked women. She said, like, oh, she basically said, oh, like, I'm a lesbian. Da 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 da. I love women. Don't tell anybody. Shh. A 500-year-old lesbian in the closet in a world where there's a High Lord who's openly gay and married to a husband? In a world where you were literally locked away in your own secret paradise for 50 years where you were in charge, you're still in the closet? After 500 years? You're still sleeping with men? Sarah could have chosen to make Moore bisexual, but she didn't. I'm like, said that Moore liked women, but that she sleeps with men because she likes them sexually, which is totally normal. That's a thing that actually exists, that there's people who only like men sexually and love women romantically and sexually. That's totally a thing. But that's not the way it was described. It was described as she sleeps with men basically out of obligation. And I just think that that's really weird and gross, and it's kind of just like forced. I'm not saying she has to be a gold star lesbian. I don't believe in that term. I think that that's stupid. I'm not saying that it's not okay to say that you like women romantically and that you would never like a man romantically, but that you like sleeping with men. That's perfectly fine. But what I am saying is weird is having a character who is always with men, always shown being around men, always shown liking men, and then coming out to the main character of your series and the last book as a lesbian. That is weird. That is weird. Like, reread the series thinking about that, thinking about how Moore is supposed to be a lesbian, but how she's always with men. It's weird. Also, literally nobody in the inner circle would care, so I don't know why she wouldn't tell them. It's been 500 years, and I'm assuming she's known for a while. And the last book was just bad. It wasn't well written. That's all I'm going to say about Sarah J. Maas, because I can just go on and on and on. That's all I'm going to say about her books. But Sarah J. Maas, She seems very racist. She seems weirdly homophobic. And also, she is a Zionist. She's Jewish. That's not an excuse. It's a genocide. It's an actual genocide, and Sarah J. Maas is on the wrong side of it. I don't actually have the physical books for the next couple of books I'm going to be talking about, but we're going to be talking about H.D. Carlton. I listened to the Cat and Mouse duet on Audible, and then I physically, or not physically, on my Kindle, I read the novella, Sibby's novella. I read that, and I also read Does It Hurt? So we're going to talk about H.D. Carlton for a little bit. When I first listened to the Cat and Mouse duet, I liked it. I feel like I did. Now that I'm a little bit older, I see everything from a different point of view, and I've had time to sit on it. I think it's a really weird series, and I don't think that, I mean, I'm not going to say I think that it shouldn't exist. There are people who love it, and I would never take that from somebody, but I think that it shouldn't be as hyped and as popular as it is, and I think that we should just stop talking about it, which is hypocritical because I'm talking about it right now. There's a full-on sexual assault scene in the second book. That's what I cried over. I mean, it's so easy for people to get their hands on. It's really not difficult at all for just anybody to read or listen to it. And I'm not saying it should be. Books should absolutely not be banned. If you want to read or listen to the series, you should be able to. But I feel like that there are some people that are going to read or listen to it thinking they can handle it and won't be able to handle it because it's so much darker than you think. And obviously there are trigger warnings, but a lot of people don't listen to trigger warnings because they're like, oh, I'm above that and I don't need that. Da-da-da-da-da. I don't have a lot to say about this series. I just think it's weird. But I do like Does It Hurt? Yeah, that one's, it's also weird, but I like that one. I do. It's actually, it's a good book. I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't like it because I did enjoy it, but I've only read it once. So I find that I don't really absorb books until I've read them more than one time. So that's all I gotta say about that one. Next author that we are going into is Rebecca Yarros. She is the author of BookTok sensation Fourth Wing. This series has people in a chokehold. Chokehold. I'm actually thinking about writing a fan fiction on this. It's Violet and Liam, but I don't know if I'm gonna write it because my best friend's name is Liam. So I just think it would be a little weird. I do like Fourth Wing. I think it's really good. I think I've read Fourth Wing 3 times. 3 times, that's a lot of times to read a 500-page book. Because it's good. I really genuinely like this book. But it's Rebecca Yarros that I have the problem with. Again, another Zionist white millennial author. What is it with Zionist white millennial authors and the hold that they have on BookTok? Because that's the same thing with Sarah J. Maas. Fourth Wing, it's good. It's really good. The people who don't like it, I genuinely don't see how you don't like it, but I understand that not everybody likes everything, and I'm perfectly okay with your opinion. And if you haven't read it and you have been deciding whether or not to read it, unless you can get yours secondhand, don't. Don't support Rebecca Yarros. Please, don't. I want to read the third book so badly, Onyx Storm, and when it comes out, I'm not going to buy it. But I don't have a problem with this book. I think it has really good diversity. I think it has really good dialogue. I really enjoy it. I really do. The second book, this one caused a lot of issues. This one's also really thick. Look at the sprayed edges. This book sucked. It was okay. It was okay. I'm scared for the future. I'm scared for literally everything that's going to be in the third book. But I will not be buying it because Rebecca Yarros is a Zionist. Rebecca Yarros supports the murder and bombing and beheading of babies. So I don't support her. And last, and certainly least, we have BookTok's most hated and most loved author, Colleen Hoover. This is the only Colleen Hoover book I've ever read, and the only Colleen Hoover book I will ever read. This is November 9th by Colleen Hoover. And if you don't know what this book is about because you've only heard about It Ends With Us, consider yourself lucky. If you've never read this book, consider yourself lucky. Honestly, when I first bought this book, it was a present. When I first got this book, I already knew Colleen Hoover was gross. And so I didn't plan on reading it, but then it was because I got this on my birthday. My birthday's at the end of October. And so on November 9th, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna read this because it's a shorter book. It's small. I'm just gonna read it and we're gonna see what happens. So I didn't really know anything about any of Colleen Hoover's books. There's no trigger warnings in her books. They're all labeled as romance. And so I was like, this is gonna be a like sad but cute romance. That's what this is gonna be. Boy, was I wrong! Wrong! November 9th by Colleen Hoover genuinely traumatized me more than Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton did. At least Hunting and Haunting Adeline had trigger warnings, and they were labeled as dark romance. But this is not romance. If you read a Colleen Hoover book and you like the male main love interests, and you find yourself wanting someone like them, please find a therapist. Find a therapist. None of Colleen Hoover's male love interests that I've heard of are actually good love interests. I'm not going to stop anybody from reading what they want to read. If you read Colleen Hoover, I genuinely don't care. It's the people that go on BookTok or Bookstagram and they support Colleen Hoover that I have a problem with. Because reading her books and supporting her books are two entirely different things, and they're in two entirely different categories. I'm never going to hate on a person who's just trying to get by through the day by reading a silly little book. I'm never going to hate on a person that does that. But people who go out of their way to support her books, even though they know that it has bad contents inside and that they should have trigger warnings and that they should not be romance, that's what I have a problem with. I'm not soft. I'm not weak. I can handle a lot in books, and it's not that this I couldn't handle. It's just that if this was a story on AO3 that I read, it would have had a million trigger warnings, and it would not have been a romance. They would have specified that it was not a romance and that it was just a fun fiction book that they came up with the idea of, and then I would like it. Because this isn't even a bad book. It's not even that it's bad. It's just that the writing is a little cringe, and the contents inside are awful. So November 9th by Colleen Hoover is a story about a girl. She is a burn victim. Half of her body is completely burnt. Like this half. I think it's her left half of the body, including her face. It's burned because she was in a house fire when she was like 15 or something. This book genuinely made me sob. I remember I was in my bedroom crying, and my dad called me to come ask me a question, and I was like, hold on. And I was like sobbing, and I was trying to pull myself together because genuinely, there should be trigger warnings on this book. I don't know how this book was able to be published. I don't know how it was able to get away with no trigger warnings. I don't know how it was able to be labeled as romance and be put in the romance section, because it's not. It's go read it for yourself. This is a trigger warning for you, but go read it and find out. So there are a lot of other books that I've read that are BookTok books that are poorly written or have poor morals. Why is the camera tilted? But if I talk about every single BookTok book that I've read that was bad, it would take all day. But here are some notable mentions. The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. Literally any book by Elena Armaz. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Very unpopular opinion. Please don't dox me on Twitter. The Shatter Me series. I know that there's probably more, but they're probably on my Kindle. But let's end this on a positive note. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite BookTok books of all time. The Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. The Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's right up there. I love everything by Allie Hazelwood. Everything she's ever touched turns to gold. Marrow is my favorite Bryn Weaver book. And everything Holly Black touches is amazing. Also, I was thinking about doing a bookshelf tour video. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know down in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video if you liked it, because it helps me know that you like this content and that you didn't just watch it and you were like, oh, gross, this girl. Ugh. Subscribe if you want to, I guess. Please subscribe, maybe. This is like my second video. And let me know what else you want to see in the future. I'm working on a very fun secret video that might come out later this month, might come out in August, and might come out never, because I am the queen of procrastination in this video actually requires me to do work. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and that's all I have to say. Bye bye!